21.
Good.
2, 1.
All right. Welcome, everybody. Want to introduce Sondra Kunes. She's going to speak to us today on getting the peace and power that we need in our lives and be the captain of our own ship. So I'm really excited to hear from her today. Thank you so much for joining us, and take it away.
Thank you, Ashley, and thank you for the invitation to present today. I would like to start off today by asking the question, who in here has ever experienced something unexpected in their life? You know, probably everybody could raise their hand to that one, because that's just what life is. I think John Lennon said it best in the lyrics to one of his songs. He said, "Life is what happens to you when you are making other plans." And that's just the way it is. I liken it to when we go sailing on a ship. You know, we're going out for a pleasure cruise, and the next thing we know, we run into rough and bumpy water, and we might be feeling a little queasy and a little seasick. Those things happen. But sometimes we're out on this little pleasure cruise and we run into hurricanes that twist our ship completely around, the waves crash over, and we begin to wonder who really is in charge of this boat. You feel like you've been taken out of control, that you no longer are commanding your ship. It can be very unsettling. Have you ever felt that way? I know I have. About 4 years ago, I stepped into my personal power and I decided I was done being fat. And I unzipped my fat suit and I shed over 100 pounds. And life was amazing. It was so great. I was hiking up the mountains with my family. I was going on the roller coasters with my kids, and I was having a ball. And the best part of it was I could wake up in the morning and know that I wasn't going to be tired and that I would have energy to last me for the whole day. And then I started noticing that I would get around 1 o'clock in the afternoon and I would totally crash. I mean, I was so tired that I didn't know if I was going to be able to get off the bed to go pick my kids up from school. And then when I got home from picking them up, I would crash on the bed and wonder how I was going to fix dinner. And I thought, well, this is kind of odd. I was feeling so good. And then I started to notice that my feet were swelling, and swelling so badly that they were spilling out of the sides of my sandals. And a little voice inside my head said, maybe you should go see the doctor. I have to tell you right now, I'm not one who likes to go to doctors, but I listened to that little voice. And on the way driving there, I'm thinking, sure, he's just going to give me some iron and he's going to give me something to get rid of the water. I'll feel really stupid and foolish, but I'll do this anyway. That's not exactly the way it panned out. I spent the next 2 months being poked and prodded. I was scanned from head to foot, biopsied in amazing places, let me tell you. And I remember the day, it was the first Tuesday of August 2014, when I went into my doctor's office for the results. And I sat there, and these are the words I heard. This isn't really what I expected. You have amyloidosis. And my first thought was, what? And he said, it's a rare blood disease. There is no cure for it. It's going to affect your organs in your body. And if you do nothing from this moment on, you will be dead in 2 years. And even with treatment, we cannot promise how long your life is going to be. And I just sat there stunned. And I thought, what just happened to me? Life was so good. And all I could think were those words, terminal. I am going to die a lot sooner than I planned on. I don't want to die. And I just sat there. I don't want to die. I don't want to die. I'm going to die. that was one of those moments when I felt like I no longer had control of my life. Someone else had come in and ripped the helm out of my hands, and I was afloat, adrift on the water. It's been 2 years, and I stand before you today, and I have learned some amazing lessons over those last 2 years that I would love to share with you about how you can retake that control of your boat, how you can stand at the helm and direct your ship no matter what circumstances come to you. I'm going to start with a little drawing here. We're going to call this the Seas of Life. And this is your life's boat. One of my favorite poems is Invictus. And I'm not going to bother you with going through the whole thing right now, but the very two closing lines are, I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul. And today my goal is to teach you how you can be the captain of your soul. Any good captain, the first thing they need to do is they need to decide where they are headed. Where is it they want to go? I call this set your course. You get to decide what it is that you want to be, what it is that you want to accomplish, where you want to go. And to do that, you set your course. I want you to take just a moment and think, what is it that I want to do? What is it that I want to become? Is there some dream that you've had that you haven't felt like you could fulfill, but it's still there? What is it that you want to accomplish? Just take a moment and think about that. Write it down. Put it somewhere, because you are now setting your course. You are determining where your ship is going to be pointed and where you are going to go. For me, it was simple. I wanted to live. I had an amazing mentor who came into my life at that moment who told me, you don't want to declare, I don't want to die. You want to declare, I want to live. And that became my goal. That was what I set my course for. I want to live. That was the destination that I was reaching towards. Now, after you've set your course, you need to let people know where you're going and what your destination is. Any good captain, if he was going to set out on a sail and he was going to go somewhere and he wanted his passengers to come with him, he would have to let them know where they were headed and where they were going. And I call this affirming our destination. You make positive affirmations about yourself and about what it is that you want to accomplish. For example, in my case, my affirmations were, I am healthy, I am whole, I am well, I am cured. And I declared it to the world. I am healthy, I am whole, I am well, I am cured. Every night before I went to bed, those were the last things that I said to myself, every single night. And in those moments when I didn't feel so great, because believe me, the treatment wasn't so great, I would remind myself of those words. I am healthy, I am whole, I am well. I have this. I am on my journey. And I would urge you to stop for a moment and write down positive I am statements about where it is you want to go, what it is you want to accomplish, and put it in the I am, and declare those every day. Let the universe stand up and shout, raise your hands high, and let the universe know this is where you are headed and where you are going. The third step is intuition. I like to liken it to Christopher Columbus. When he set out on his journey, he was headed to India, he thought, and he was going west, and there were a lot of naysayers who thought there was no way he could possibly sail across the ocean to the west. Some thought he was going to fall off the edge of the world. But he said time and again that he was being led by a voice, by inspiration, by whatever you want to call it. I call it intuition or inspiration. He went to a place where he knew what he needed to do. And even when his crew members were telling him to turn back because they were afraid they were lost, he kept going because he was listening to his intuition. He knew that it was out there and that he was going to find whatever it was he was meant to find. The way we do this is we ground. And if you want to ground with me, this is what you do. You put your feet flat on the floor. And I like to put hands on my lap, palm up, because that signals to our body that we are open and ready to receive. And then close your eyes and breathe in deeply through your nose and exhale through your mouth. And repeat that, in through your nose and exhale through your mouth. And as you quiet your mind, get to a space where you ask, what is the next step I need to take? What is the next step? We're not asking for the whole journey to be laid out, just the next step. And when you get that next step, write it down. And then act on it. That's an important thing. Sometimes we get inspirations, or our intuition tells us to do something and we don't act. It's so important to act so that we can continue to receive intuition and the inspiration that we need. In my story, I was in a dither. I knew I wanted to live. I was affirming it to the world, but I didn't know how. I didn't know what to do. I was getting advice from so many different directions. I had people who were referring me to natural healers, even though they didn't even know what it was. I had, my doctor had made an appointment for me to see an oncologist at my home. My nephew called me up on the phone and wanted me to go see a doctor where he worked. And I didn't know what to do. I didn't know anything about this disease. I didn't know who treated it. I didn't know how they treated it. And I was in a space where I was listening. It didn't happen in the moment, and that sometimes happens, but when you're open to receive intuition, you'll recognize it when it comes. And I remember distinctly the day we were driving up the freeway in Salt Lake County, and I looked out my window and I saw Huntsman Cancer Center. And I thought to myself, you know, you always said to yourself, if you got cancer, that's where you wanted to be treated. And even though this isn't cancer, you should go there. So Monday morning, I picked up the phone and I called, and the lady on the other end said, well, I'm so glad you called because we just opened an amyloidosis clinic here at the Huntsman Cancer Center. And it was the best decision I could have made because not only did I have one doctor, but I got 3 amazing doctors in the deal. And I got state-of-the-art treatment because the Huntsman Cancer Center is the only amyloidosis clinic between California and the Mississippi River. That was pure intuition, and I have never regretted it from that moment on. I knew that whatever was going to happen to me there was the right thing, and I followed it every step of the way. And like I said, you don't need to know all of the steps at the beginning. You just need to know the next step. And the last step is lift Your anchor. Now you have to ask yourself, what does this mean in this kind of a situation? Well, think about it. What is an anchor for? When you're on a boat, you put an anchor in the water to keep you right where you are so that your boat doesn't drift off. If you keep that anchor in the water, you're never going to go anywhere. And in this situation in our life, the things that are anchors are the things that are holding us back. There are fears. They are limiting beliefs that we have about ourselves and about what we can or can't accomplish. And believe it or not, sometimes your anchor that's holding you back is your timetable of when you want to have this to be accomplished. Sometimes we have to let go, lift that anchor out of the water and say, I'm going to let gestation take over. I'm going to let the universe take over. And I'm going to let the universe decide when the time is right for me to accomplish this goal and let go. I have to tell you a story about this, how I learned this lesson the hard way. To treat amyloidosis, they treat it just like cancer. So I had 2 rounds of chemotherapy, which is the equivalent of two months. And I knew that the ultimate goal was going to be to have a stem cell transplant, or some of you may know it as a bone marrow transplant. I had it in my mind, this was September when I started the whole process, and so I had it in my mind that I was going to have my chemotherapy, and then I was going to get a little break, and then I could have my stem cell treatment in January after the holidays. And I remember distinctly the day that my doctor called me into his office. I'd had another bone marrow biopsy. He said, everything's working great. You've had a good response to the chemo. It's time to do the bone marrow transplant. We're going to admit you December 1st. And I knew that meant 3 weeks in the hospital. I was going to miss all of my December, all of my Christmas holiday, except for hopefully I'd get home for Christmas. And I was not happy. I was not, because that was not my timetable. That was not how it was supposed to work. And I was miserable. And I was unhappy. And I went into depression. And the next Monday, I had to go and have a PICC line put in my chest. It was a triple lumen, so I had these 3 little pipes or tubes coming out of my chest. And they had to do that so they could harvest my stem cells. And I hated it. That day, I remember being so miserable because I looked at this as a sign that I'm sick. All this stuff isn't working. And then they give you shots to make your body overproduce white blood cells so they can harvest. And they make you feel like you have the flu. And instead of being okay like I was in the other steps, I was just miserable that week. And I remember going home and praying to God and saying, please, it's not set in stone yet. Please let me go and just skip December and have it in January. And I heard a voice. I have never had this experience before, but I literally heard these words in my mind. I have brought you this far. Just trust me. Just trust. And I can't tell you how amazing the change was when I lifted that anchor out of the water and I let go. Normally, harvesting stem cells takes 3 days, and they're lucky if they can get 7 million. Mine took 2 days, and I harvested 16 million. And I'll tell you, that made all the difference in my treatment, because they were able to give me back 10 million of those stem cells. And I recovered amazingly because of that. And I told you there were 4 steps, and you can see it says sail. We're going to set sail. But the one thing I learned that's probably the most important lesson is love. Love the journey. Love where you are. Love the things that you're learning. Take time every day to find something to be grateful for. If you can do that, it will affect your attitude, your outlook. Everything is better when you can learn to love the journey, when you can love where you are in this moment. Love makes a difference. Now, as I've alluded to you through the course of this, I had an amazing experience. I went through my 2 months of chemo. I had my stem cell transplant. When I checked into the hospital, the doctor told me that I had a much higher risk of dying from this treatment because of amyloidosis. I was told that I would get mouth sores that would make it difficult for me to eat and to drink. I was told to beware because it was more than likely I would get infections, and even when I checked out of the hospital, that I would be readmitted at some point because of infections. And I am here to stand and tell you, because I put this into practice, I had no mouth sores. I had no infections. In fact, when I was released from the hospital on December 22nd, I had to go back on the 26th to have blood work. And they informed me at that day that if I were to have something happen and I showed up in an emergency room, the doctors there would have no idea what I had just have been through because my blood counts were completely normal. And on March 16th, 2015, I was declared in complete remission a mere 6 months after this all set into place. Complete remission. There is absolutely no sign of amyloidosis in my body. Now, you notice I didn't say cured. That was one of my mantras. My affirmations is that I'm cured. In my mind, I am cured. But you know what? It doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter, because I learned that up here, when I set my course and I said, I want to live, I thought I was talking about my lifelong living till 90. But I discovered that it meant I want to live right now, in this moment, and take advantage of everything that life has in store for me. Am I cured? I think so. But it doesn't matter, because I am living. I am completely alive now and enjoying life to the fullest. That's the lesson I learned. I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul. I choose where my ship is going to go, and I love the journey. I enjoy the journey. I have enjoyed sharing this message with you today, and if any of this has resonated with you, and if you would like to learn more, I would love to have you send me a private message, and I would be happy to get in contact with you and share you what else I have, the other mentoring programs that I have that I can help you with and get you sailing on your journey of life. Thank you. Woo!
Thank you so much, Sondra, for sharing with us today, and what a handy way to remember to set your sails, affirmation, intuition, and lift your anchor. I know I can work on lifting my anchor right now. I'm like, oh, that's easy. Oh, you want me to actually go? Okay, I can do that. So I'm committed. I've learned something today, and thank you so much for being with us.
Opportunity.
Thank you so much, and we'll see you again at noon. Those of you who want to